Man, this is Deion Dawkins, man, and you're listening to The Scoop on OwlScoop.com. You already know.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to The Scoop, OwlScoop.com's podcast, Season 9, Episode 33. I'm OwlScoop.com editor John DiCarlo, joined by Kyle Gauss, Ramir Vaughn, and Declan Landis. No Johnny Zwizlak this week. He's in Phillies land, right?
That's correct.
Wearing a who's in town? Why I should
No idea.
The Rockies.
The
That's
Rockies.
right, wearing a Colorado Rockies uniform.
If you heard anything other than Dire Straits' Money for Nothing, then Declan didn't update the intro music. I secured the rights, and yet we're still doing this.
You've been talking to Mark Knopfler.
It took a while.
Well,
That would actually be a really sick intro. I can't even.
I mean, yeah, it's an iconic song.
there's also some problematic lyrics in that song.
We just cut it off.
We didn't use those parts. We used the
Yeah.
non-problematic parts.
With Sting at the beginning,
Mhm.
singing "I Want My MTV."
Yes.
Yeah. Well, hey man, I don't need to know where the money's coming from. As long as we sort it all out, it's good.
I wouldn't put that on the record if I were you.
Look, it's April 16th when we're recording this, so we have 364 days until we have to worry about where the money came from.
Exactly.
Okay, that's future us's problem.
It's new tax year.
You TurboTax.
No, not to get a sidebar. F TurboTax. Do not pay for TurboTax.
Really?
What
They
happened?
spend like hundreds of millions of dollars a year to make tax code more complicated than it needs to be. Tax code in the U.S. is a joke. Use Free Tax USA. It's the same thing, a lot cheaper, and they don't pay for lobbyists.
I hope it's free.
No free shout outs, but we just
It's called free tax. I would hope. It's
I actually think I paid 20 some bucks this year, but it's a lot cheaper.
Might
Hey,
be
we
false
find a-
advertising.
find new reach each week with the scoop.
$20 tax.
$20 USA.
It's 6-minute abs.
No.
No.
Minimal pay tax, USA.
Yes. Anyway, we got a lot of spring football to talk about. The cherry and white game was this past Saturday. Have some women's basketball recruiting updates. A lot of mailbag questions. I know you guys have stuff on your mind regarding spring football, regarding the quarterback battle, regarding the portal, all sorts of stuff. That's what we're here for. The Scoop, as always, is brought to you by Greenspan and Greenspan Injury Lawyers. If you've been injured while on the road or the highway and the crash was someone else's fault, the insurance company is not going to be on your side. You need us, Temple Law grads, who will fight hard to get the compensation that you deserve. We only get paid if we win, so in Pennsylvania or New York, call us today at 215-261-7359, 215-261-7359, and you can find them on the web at greenspans-law.com. That's greenspans-law.com. All right, so famous number 33s, guys. We'll start with that, and then Declan,
I've got some doozies today.
some doozies, but famous number 33s.
Michael
Big basketball number.
Larry Bird.
Larry Bird,
Cream.
Patrick Ewing.
Scottie Pippen.
What did you
Shaq,
say?
I think, was 33 at one point.
Yeah, what did you say, Ramir? What did you say at the
Say
outset?
Michael Turner,
Michael Turner.
former Falcons running back.
Wow. You are good for like the mid-range NFL running backs.
Oh, I love the running back position.
You know, if Boston Sam was on here, he'd be forced to know about these guys. Two big Oriole players,
I'm cooked.
Not Eddie Murray, right?
Eddie Murray and Frank Robinson.
Oh, Brooks Robinson wore 5. Frank Robinson. I thought if you had said gun to my head, I would have said Eddie Murray was 30, but he was 33.
John, we talked about this before. Whatever the same website that we all use says they're 33. So Frank Robinson wore 33 with the Indians, which is why he's on this list. But when he was with the Orioles, he wore 20.
So you're
Yeah.
wrong on multiple counts.
Well, I'm not wrong.
No, you're not wrong.
Ranker.com is
Got it.
wrong.
Shout out, Ranker.
My favorite Sixer, Hersey Hawkins, played with Johnny Dawkins, same backcourt there, played with Charles Barkley. Kyle, what other, can you quiz us a little bit?
Well, first I got verified numbers apparently to make sure that they're actually accurate. 40-40 guy for the Nats. You'll probably think of him more as a Yankee, but he has 40-40 year with the Nats, I believe.
Drawing a blank. I don't know.
Yeah, I got
Alfonso Soriano.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
Pitcher won the Cy Young and MVP. I think he actually won Rookie of the Year that year. No, not Rookie of the Year, but Cy Young MVP early 70s for the A's.
Vida Blue?
Vida Blue.
How about me?
Great. Nice work.
Wait, hold on. One more.
That wasn't heartfelt.
No.
One more. think. He wore this, but it's the same crap. Like he didn't wear this with the Phillies, so it doesn't count. I was gonna say Bobby Abreu wore 33 with like the Dodgers, but
What did he wear? Didn't he didn't wear it with the Phillies?
wore 50 something.
53.
Yeah,
You're right.
53.
You're right. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Not a bad list.
Good
yeah,
stuff.
big
That-
basketball heavy.
Declan, you want to tell everybody how you prepared for this podcast?
By watching a Hallmark movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which one?
It was one, I don't remember what it was called. It was a journalist goes down to a nature preserve to write this story on a guy that's trying to save all this land. And we didn't get to the end of it, so hopefully they fell
Did he
in love.
happen to be just like a dude with a chiseled jaw and like a nice beard, wearing
Yeah,
flannel?
Stubble.
Yeah,
Definitely
stubble.
flannel.
It
Definitely
wasn't,
flannel.
but did she grow up in the bayou or something and just went back? Like, because that's
No,
usually a big
city
part of
girl.
Hallmark movies.
She was from the city, journalist in the city.
But now she's gonna run like a Christmas tree farm in the bayou.
No, they're falling in love on the nature preserve. She mentioned multiple times she was a city girl, doesn't like nature, but spoiler alert, she falls in love with it.
She learns to love it. He takes her out one night to give her like the real story. There's like a crocodile comes out of the swamp with like a ring in it. And she's like, "See, it's a
Will you
sign."
marry me?
And then they have one like open mouth kiss at the end as the credits roll.
In the final 5 minutes. Can't do
Yes.
it before. Can't do it before. The censors will get you.
What if one Hallmark movie just goes like really too far the other way? It's like 6 minutes in, she's just like walking out of his room, and you're like, Jesus, this is different than the Hallmark like script.
Hallmark going edgy.
Is this Cinemax Hallmark? What is this?
Oh boy.
Hallmark and Lifetime got together,
Start cooking.
started cooking, man.
We combine our forces. There's no telling what we can do.
We will rule mid-afternoon television together.
Yeah, walk into the newsroom at the Temple News, and Declan and Ryan are just relaxing, watching a Hallmark movie.
You know, sometimes you need a mental break. You
I
know,
see about like
that's what we
5
need.
minutes of a Hallmark movie a day because for some reason my TV like it defaults to like one of those apps that's like free television or whatever. Like
Oh yeah,
Pluto
yeah.
or whatever.
What's it called?
There's a billion of them, right? And like
Yeah.
one of the channels is just like the Hallmark movie channel, and it's just rolling through.
Yeah,
these.
yeah. Ours does the same thing. What's the one you mentioned?
Tubi?
Tubi or I think it's Pluto, like one of them. It's all
Yeah.
they're all the same.
They're all the same.
thing.
Man.
Yeah.
It's like that, or do you want to watch like ridiculousness for 24 hours straight? Those are the
Hey,
two
you know,
options.
Not a bad option. Ridiculousness is great.
Like I said, you're eventually just gonna wear a house coat, have your hair in curlers. and,
Hey, you say that like it's a bad thing.
I know.
My mom had to remind me that my dream cannot be stay-at-home dad. So that was a tough thing to hear last night on the phone.
She said that.
She did say that, yeah.
What do you mean reminded you? Reminded you implies that you guys have had this conversation more than once.
Oh, we have actually. That's because
Does she no longer a fan of the Scoop?
She is. She texted me. She was trying to come up with a question, but instead she said, no questions for this week except how did you not know that John Steinbeck wrote Of Mice and Men? I was
Hmm.
like, I'm sorry. I don't know what to tell you.
Holding you
And
accountable.
then she said, also, what are you going to talk about now that football is over? You can only speculate so much on next season.
I love it.
Wow.
Which
She
is
kinda
valid.
is. She
Which
kinda
is so
just-
valid.
Yeah, cuts right to the core. If we could track our listeners per minute, our volume, like our listeners just fell off after they're like, wait a minute, what can they talk about? Why am I listening to this episode?
Hallmark movies.
Hey, I think one time during the summer, we should each come up with a topic and just talk about that the entire like last half of the
I'm telling you, we should do
podcast.
high school debate class. We just get a topic,
That's a good idea,
we're
too.
randomly assigned a side to it, and we have to argue.
round
That's-
robin bracket style.
and
Oh,
then
that'd
we
be
just
sweet.
we see how long it takes John to realize that every week we give him the controversial opinion.
It's a great idea.
Why is it then?
See you in July.
Why is it that I'm just sweating and you guys are all laughing at me?
Okay, John, here you go.
Oh.
That's so
Well,
good.
So on
Declan,
this date,
on this date or on or around this date? Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us for the latest installment of On This Date. Of course, today we're looking at April 17, as that's the day that this episode will come out.
Mhm.
In 1521, by the way, we're going to bounce around a little bit here because I didn't put them in order. In 1521, this person appeared before the Diet of Worms to defend his idea on church reform. This is for you, Dad, by the way, if you're listening.
I'll give you another clue if you don't get it. Didn't he nail his
His thesis.
readings or his thesis to the doors?
Correct.
Oh,
A little bit of history here for you.
not this is Martin Luther's.
There you go.
After that.
It's
Oh,
Martin
really?
Luther, yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
All right.
Good job, John.
Thank you, Ramir.
And we're going to move a little forward. John, you may remember this. In 1790,
Oh, no. You're like that's like a dad joke. 1790. You were 10 then,
and
right?
yet everybody cracked up
Yeah,
laughing.
yeah, good point. Good point. Who
This
am I
will
to
be
say?
one where Kyle marks it down when he listens back to this.
Hmm.
This influential figure in early U.S. history passed away in 1790 on this day.
Controversial.
No,
I don't
influential,
think
you said.
so.
What did he die of?
That's going to require a little
Probably-
bit more research
Probably
here.
scurvy.
Give me 1 second.
Not George Washington, is it?
No,
No, but
Washington
you're in the
died
right
in
boat.
Early 1800s.
no, I think he died in like 1792. He didn't make it to the 1800s.
Neither did this person. 1790.
Well, yeah, we've established that.
Okay, I wasn't sure if you'd forgotten. To be honest.
Oh
with you.
wow, Washington almost made it to the 1800s. 1799.
He was right there, right on the doorstep.
Uh,
Tough break. The cause of death was complications from pleurisy.
Pleurisy, yeah.
Crazy. I had no idea that was a thing, to be honest with you.
Well, I mean, there have been some medical advances.
Shout out doctors.
I don't know.
Can you give us a hint?
Money. On money.
Franklin.
Benjamin Franklin.
Benjamin Franklin.
Uh,
All the other money guys. Well, no, Hamilton died.
He had a lot of
17
Ben Franklin had a lot of ailments.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm saying, was it syphilis? Did
Built
syphilis
a
kill him?
bridge.
Because then Ben
Syphilis,
Franklin.
gout. I mean, he did. He had a lot. He had a
Yeah,
lot
my
going
dude was
on.
slanging it. Like he was just over in France.
Building bridges everywhere.
Rhyme here dropped his microphone to laugh.
They say he discovered electricity, you know? I mean, shoot.
That's a bit.
In 2002,
Declan is clearly rattled.
in 2002 on this day, this show, well loved by an adjunct professor here at the Klein College at Temple University, aired its 10,000th episode.
General Hospital.
General
Oh,
Hospital.
I was gonna say Days of Our Lives, General Hospital. Okay.
John Kincaid. Shout out to John Kincaid.
Yep.
Loves General Hospital. We were talking about it last week.
Oh, this
now we're
is
gonna-
was this your theory about how you're gonna catch up and watch every episode?
Yeah, and then
Was
I
it your plan?
realized what that actually meant. And also, you can't get anything before season 30. On
What if you
streaming.
watched it at
Jesus.
2 times speed?
That's going to take me forever.
Your brain adjusts to it. It's like listening to a podcast. Like I'm sure there's people out here listening at like 1.8 speed. Your brain adjusts, so you can just
Maybe I
you
will.
can catch up.
Maybe I will. I'll work on that after this.
Ladies and gentlemen, Alvin and the Chipmunks. Star.
Nice. In 1964, the Ford Motor Company unveiled this famous vehicle at the New York World's Fair. 1964.
Mustang?
The Mustang.
I was thinking about that literally the other day. I was thinking about like I couldn't remember what the Mustang was, but I was like, what's Ford's like cool car? Because I kept going back to like the Dodge Charger, the Ford Mustang.
Ford Mustang, absolutely. On this day in 1947, this player bunted for his first major league hit.
Jackie Robinson.
Jackie Robinson.
Why was yesterday Jackie Robinson Day then? Just because it's just always a Monday.
No, it's the day he made.
Oh, he didn't get a hit his
debut,
first
right?
game.
His debut.
Yeah.
So he didn't get a hit his first game. Hmm.
Yeah.
How about that cherry and white game, guys?
What about it?
50% of this podcast was there.
Yes. Yeah.
So you guys should talk about that.
Kyle and I were not there. The defense beat the offense 56-41. So, of course, I think dedicated fans know by now that they had a scoring system that awarded virtually everything. Sacks, big plays, in addition to touchdowns. There was only one offensive touchdown during the actual scrimmaging, and that was a 17-yard touchdown pass from Forrest Brock to Reese Clark. E.J. Wilson had a 4-yard touchdown run during situational goal line drills. 13 sacks for the defense. Again, keep in mind that the quarterbacks were not being hit. So there were, well, let me ask you guys. You guys were there.
And still,
It should have been a lot more, to be
Okay.
honest.
All right. So yeah, like those 13 sacks, again, the quarterbacks were not live. Would those 13 sacks have been 13 sacks on a real day?
I mean, it depends because the tough part is you can't evade it as a quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
But also there were times where like Diwun Black in particular was he was getting home. Like that would have been I think he would have had at least 5
Yeah.
of his
His
6.
credit was 6. Yeah.
Yeah. But most of them, it was like full 2-hand. Like if they had kept playing, it would have been a sack.
Mhm.
It wasn't just like a reach out and touch.
I have 3 things to ask you guys here, but just again, knowing what we've talked about over the past several weeks, it's an exhibition game. They're not putting their full playbooks out there. Stan Drayton seemed, I think, overall pleased with the spring. He'd said, there were no discipline issues. Players stayed healthy for the most part. He even took out a Jeff Collins favorite. How you do anything is how you do everything, which Jeff Collins beat into the ground while he was here.
He didn't think of that phrase though.
No, he didn't. But I'm saying it's a Jeff Collins favorite in terms of like Jeff used to say it all the time. Who originally came up with that? Ben Franklin.
Plato.
Mickey Mantle.
Plato. Oh boy.
Socrates.
Just general impressions of the game, surface level stuff, and then I want to ask you guys just a series of questions. We've got some audio from Stan Drayton about the quarterbacks, which is obviously going to be the first, second, third, fourth, and fifth point of discussion about the spring and heading into preseason camp in late July and August. Ramir, you seemed kind of generally underwhelmed by the game. Again, we've been saying for weeks, even if there were some eye-popping stats with the sacks, but you kind of just came away with it with kind of like a meh attitude, right? What can you reasonably take from Saturday, if anything?
The progression of the defense. Defense usually comes along a lot faster than offense anyway. And it was nice to see that they could actually get to the quarterback and generate pressure. And even in last year's spring game, I don't really think they did that all that well, but they were able to do it in this game. And the secondary, of course, I think the secondary is probably the best unit so far. They locked down the receivers that was out there. Granted, a lot of Temples or who is thought to will play this year, John Adams and Stewart, guys like that weren't playing. They still played well. They still barely allowed any separation down the field. Safeties were flying everywhere. It's the secondary and the defense in general really in their progression over the spring has really impressed me.
So again, just in terms of eye test stuff, the secondary just looks better to you. They just kind of look the part more than they did at this time last year.
Yes.
Yeah.
And a big part of that, we kind of have talked about it over the offseason, but it could be the switch to the 4-3 base. And I asked Coach Drayton about that. And he kind of mentioned that it is a big change, but he also mentioned it's the personnel, like Ramir is saying. So here's him saying that right now.
Scheme is one thing. Let's make it clear. I love scheme. I love writing circles and X's on the wall and all that stuff. But at the end of the day, it's the players, right? And if they're buying in to what you're teaching them, the scheme's going to work. If you got the right talent and they're buying into coaching, they're preparing the right way, then the scheme's going to work, right? And so I think that's what you got right now. Again, you just got some intentional guys I can't wait for you guys to get to know them. There are a lot of new faces for you all, that you got to get to know. And I think when you have that opportunity to talk to them, you'll understand the chip on their shoulder that they have in their approach to being here as a Temple Owl. And a lot of them are very, very grateful coming from different programs, coming from junior colleges, coming through by way of the portal and having an opportunity here at Temple. They're not taking that for granted, and the fact that they understand and embrace competition within their unit groups, they know everything is graded, so it's a very evaluation friendly program. And they don't have time to take time off, not even a little bit, so I think that's what you're seeing within their effort. So yeah, scheme is good. It fits who we have out there, but they've bought into the scheme.
All right. So I want to go around the horn here with 3 questions for you guys, and we can kind of drill down on more of this. And again, there are more football mailbag questions to get to as well. Question number 1, what do you feel good about with the team after the spring? Not just the cherry and white game, but we had 2 open practices that we were able to see and the cherry and white game. What's one thing that you think fans could feel good about?
You mentioned the defense as a whole. I'm going to zone in on the front 7 because I think the defensive line has shown that they can get into the backfield. They can stop the run, and that is a huge step up from where they were last year. not only that, but they have a couple of guys that can rotate in and out. So it's not just like, oh, 4 guys, oh, 3 guys. Like it's probably 5 or 6 that they could play at any point, which I think is going to be big because we've seen how they've dealt with injuries. We've seen, the issues with depth at that position. And this is the first time in a couple of years it feels like they have depth up front. And then the linebackers are playing a little more confidently, it seemed like, than last year, where they had to be worried about more than what they were used to, I guess, if that makes any sense. And it just, you saw on Saturday specifically how much better they could play when they were playing a little more freely and using their athleticism a little better than they did last year.
Even without Jordan McGee and Vandy Rigby.
Yeah, honestly, even without them. I mean, sure, it would have been one thing to have Jordan and Vandy out there. Like, they're 2 very, very good players that would have made that unit look even better. But I just think with the expectation in mind that they weren't going to be out there, I think they looked really, really good, for where they are in the offseason.
Ramir, you can go to secondary or anything else that.
Real quick, I like that Declan said he was going to hone in on something, and then he said 7 of the 11
guys.
positions.
Yeah, front 7.
Yeah.
Front 7. That's a unit.
General to specific.
You're welcome.
The nickel position in particular,
All right, whatever.
because
Now that's a specific answer.
Jalen Lewis and what's Smith Marset's first name? I don't want to.
Ishim.
Ashim, yeah.
Okay, Ashim Smith Marset. Those 2 played really well on Saturday. Yes, last Saturday. Those 2 played really, really well. Whether it was, being sticky in coverage or coming down and run support and helping out, they played really well. And especially like after last year when, after McMurray was forced to go outside, he couldn't play nickel anymore, and that position kind of like, struggled a bit along with the secondary in its entirety. But seeing good nickel play just from, 2 guys, 1 new guy and 1 guy who, didn't really get a lot of burn last year, it's encouraging.
Kyle, an area where fans could feel good after the spring.
I'll give a different one just to be different, but I will echo what Declan said. I think defensive line will be a lot better. I think you could argue there's probably 8 guys in the interior that they are comfortable playing with, which is 6, 7 more than last year. So that's an improvement.
Easily.
Yeah.
I think on the other side, I don't think they're going to miss a beat. David Martin Robinson and Jordan Smith were very good players. I think that tight end position and that group is still very good. I think Reese Clark has the potential to really be a difference maker at that position. So I still feel pretty good about the tight ends on offense.
Yeah, I was actually going to mention the tight ends too. I think that maybe because, well, I mean, fans are impatient wherever sport you're looking at, wherever you go. I think there was a certain level of impatience that came with him being a St. Joe's prep guy. And then when he didn't, catch, 60 balls as a true freshman, some fans were like, what's wrong? What's wrong? And really looks good, looks quick, looks super versatile. I forget who called him a Swiss Army knife. Was it Stan? Somebody. Or maybe it was Adam Shire, I think, like referred to him as that. It's just a really versatile tight end. I would agree there. I would agree with the defensive line piece of things too. Not on Saturday, but Kevon Beckwith, their defensive tackles coach, talked about how versatile Sekou Kroma could be, being inside, being a bigger defensive end. They really like what they've seen from him. I think those are 2 areas of strength where fans could feel good after the spring. What do you not feel good about after the spring, certain position area?
I mean, I wrote about it a little bit for the Temple News. The offensive line, granted, we've mentioned it. They were just trying to get out healthy. Okay. So maybe they weren't playing as full on as they would have normally. However, from what we saw, it just doesn't feel different. And I think that was the most frustrating thing. Like watching them, even in the non 100% drills, the defensive line was still getting penetration. There weren't really many holes for the running backs to get through. EJ Wilson, after, mentioned that communication was a huge issue last year, and it makes you think maybe it still is. And that, granted, like, this unit has not had a lot of time to play together.
Right.
Like, it's a couple months, at most. And they're still trying to figure out their roles, and they're still trying to figure out their positions. But it's also like, you burn me once, that kind of
You
thing.
feel burned after last year?
I don't feel burned. I was just trying to empathize with Temple fans. I'm a journalist. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
But I'm just like, you hesitate to give that level of trust because you saw what happened last year. And I think that was kind of what I took away from that was, okay, well, there are some obvious issues still. Are they going to be able to rectify that over the summer?
Ramir, an area where you do not feel as good, position group where you do not feel as good after spring.
I completely agree with Declan, but for the sake of being different, I'm going to say the quarterbacks. It's very early. It is still very early. It's still over 130 some days until they have to, take on Oklahoma and Norman. But no one has looked even the slightest bit of impressive, whether it's the open practices that we got to see or in the spring game. No one looks like they're like taking reins or even like look the part. Like I hate to say it like that, but none of them look the part right now.
Yeah. No, that's fair. Kyle, before I get to you, well, since we're talking about the quarterbacks, I think this is one of the quotes that's going to stick with fans. Again, obviously, you're going to get asked about the quarterback in spring ball, even if you have an established quarterback. That we asked a lot about EJ Warner last spring, but Stan was asked about the quarterbacks, and here's where he says, I don't feel like any of them are ready for the season opener at Oklahoma.
I don't know if our quarterbacks are ready for that yet. I don't know if I'm ready to say that they're ready for that yet. I think in their mind, what we've learned through their actions, there's not a whole lot of flinching that goes on in their approach. There were days where, a couple of weeks actually, where we had the quarterbacks live and they handled the pressure well. I just think that the development still needs to take place in regards to them taking command of the offense. This is not, a super simple offense, although it's an offense that will mold to the skill set that they will bring to the table. Just like when EJ took over a year ago, right? We had to completely flip the offense to a totally different style of play, but I think that these quarterbacks have embraced competition. That's the deal, right? It's hard to create competition in today's climate. People tend to run away from it. Young people tend to run away from competition. Our quarterbacks are embracing it, so I won't take their development for granted. I won't underestimate how far, how high their ceilings are, and we're just going to wait and see. We're going to wait and see who emerges and claims the position. But I think we've got a group of guys that are working in the right direction, and they're all showing potential.
Kyle, your thoughts on the quarterbacks or any position group where you do not feel good about this team heading into preseason camp?
What I don't feel good about, I'm going to also, you could probably spin as an excuse for why some of the other positions are like this. I feel like there's enough lingering injuries and nickel and dime injuries that you're like, that's really preventing them from gelling in an off season where they really need to start gelling. Like there's so many new guys, there's so many people playing in different positions, so like that they really need all that time and all the snaps and all the reps they can get. But yet you got like Demarick Morris leaves the spring game in a sling. Ian Stewart misses a good bit of the spring. Zay Baines, for non-injury reasons, misses a good bit of the spring. Like offensive line, Luke Watson played a lot last year, could barely play in the spring. Like things like that. I'm like, I just really wish you could wave a wand and they all had perfectly healthy off seasons, so that way you can kind of see like who truly is competing well and playing well. And it concerns me. The theme of the question. It concerns me that they haven't had the ability to kind of do that. Like I said, it's 130 days, like Ramir said, until they play Oklahoma, so they have plenty of time to get healthy. It doesn't sound like there's been some catastrophic injury that's going to cost a guy a year, but not good stuff either.
How about an area where you feel the team can improve in time during preseason camp before the start of season? So maybe a position group that is not that anybody expected any position group to be like a complete picture or a finished product at this point, but maybe a position group that is a work in progress, but maybe headed in the right direction based off what you guys saw. Again, whether that's in the 2 open practices that we were able to see or Saturday.
I'm going to say, and this is not through any fault of their own, but I think the running backs are getting better, but also they don't have the opportunity to be what they could be because of what we've already talked about. But I feel Temple fans should maybe have a little more confidence in what they saw from a guy like EJ Wilson. Joquest Smith looked a little more explosive. And then Antoine Littleton broke several tackles on Saturday where I was like, oh wow, they haven't had this level of physicality since Ed Sadie went for however many against USF the one time 2 years ago. So I think that's something to feel good about. But again, it all depends on, are they going to be able to grow if, depending on what happens in front of them. So
I think health is a big factor with any position group, and specifically for the wide receivers. They're just not healthy right now. Like if you were to watch even like this practices we attended the spring game, like there's just not much separation going on with the receivers. And now Grant Dante Wright is out there, and Zay Bangs was out in the spring game. He played in the spring game.
he did, yeah. He had some nice catches.
So, those guys are there and they're present, but Antonio Jones isn't out there.
Who could or should be a significant part of their offense this season. You're not seeing you're not seeing yet eye to eye, like what you haven't seen yet what he can actually do for you at Temple. But they're hoping that he'll be that guy.
Like guys like him, Ian Stewart, what's the other guy?
John Adams.
John Adams. Like guys like that, those guys aren't out there right now. And those are on paper your best receivers. And it makes a lot of a difference when your guys can be able to separate. So maybe, of course, like football is a team game. Like everybody has to do their job in order for things to go successfully. And that's another part of the machine that isn't working correctly for it to look the way it does right now. Also
affects the running game, of course. You can get the passing game going. The teams have to respect that as well. I'll say like an area where I was maybe pleasantly surprised. Again, I wasn't there, but on a day where there were windy conditions, Carl Harden converting a few field goals. Again, I think that, again, based off of what Adam Shire is saying, he said when he talked to us last month, there's a reason we brought him here. He's made some kicks in SEC stadiums, but Carl Harden hitting a few field goals of decent range in windy conditions. Like, what if Maddox Truzillo comes in and is a complete flop, like, and you have no contingency plan? I think Carl Harden's leg, sometimes they've had some backup kickers where you're like, there is a discernible drop off. Like this guy can maybe come in and hit an extra point for you, or
last year.
Yeah. Or like a 25 yarder. I mean, he's got decent range. And so you typically don't talk about like depth at the place kicking position. You want to have one guy and that's it. But I thought that was a bright spot for them, and that he was able to hit a few kicks when it was windy. Now, of course, we'll start keeping an eye on the transfer portal and guys leaving just as much as guys that they're getting. Kyle, they're down to what, again, if you follow Kyle's scholarship board on our football board for subscribers. All right, so from here on out, of course, you want to look at the portal. Who might Temple pick up? Again, we'll talk about the quarterback position in a little bit, but Gensley Augusta, again, I'm probably mispronouncing his name. He's at the portal. Declan's just laughing at my inability to pronounce names here.
It's not true.
That's very true. Corey Yeoman, a guy who I think they had some decent hopes for, has hit the portal. And it looks like Sam Martin has hit the portal now.
Yeah, that seems to be the case. So that puts them at 87 scholarships. So there's still at least 2 more that have to happen by June. Odds are a lot more than 2 will happen.
Yeah.
And with like Corey Yeoman, like it makes sense when, like he was probably like the 4th or 5th linebacker last year, but then they brought in so many JUCO guys and transfers like TK Wright from NC State, guys that seem to have left him in the depth chart that you start seeing it writing on the wall a little bit.
Yeah. So we'll have more football questions in the mailbag to get to. Let's talk about Diane Richardson's women's basketball team. We broke some recruiting news over the weekend, and then today Temple's newest edition broke her own news. So Temple added Felicia Jacobs, 6'2" forward from England, averaged 11.3 points and 11.1 rebounds per game this season for Southwark Pride, after averaging a little more than 8 points and 7 rebounds a game for Great Britain's under-18 national team last year. So again, a 6'2" post player. Again, we've talked at length about how much they'll need there with both of the players who have left. But even I think had they kept who they wanted to keep, forwards, post play was an area where they wanted to make a dent on their roster, right? And make a positive impact on the roster, I should say.
Yeah, they had one forward. I mean, we talked about it when Ines Piper transferred, but they had one forward that saw playing time still on the roster. So they needed somebody that could go get rebounds, especially, and they needed somebody that can score out of the post.
Breaking news.
Oh,
Diane Hawkins also just ended the
Okay.
That makes sense.
yeah. Yeah, I could see that too.
Yeah. Cornerback from the Haverford School, who the previous staff recruited. They were
big
hoping
track guy, right?
big track guy, super fast. Let's try to turn him into a better football player. Just didn't happen. Not that he didn't play, but again, it was a depth guy. They were hoping to just, again, let's, like Kyle said, turn a track guy into, just coach him up a
Football
little
player.
bit. Just never
Right.
A
happened.
tale as
Yeah.
old as time.
Tail was hold his time. Yeah.
It seems like those guys never work out too. Like you convince yourself while recruiting, you're like, oh man, he was a state guy at this, blah blah. And it's rare.
Yeah.
True.
I mean, they've had some players here who were very, very good on the track, but they had the real good resume of football too, like a Rockwell Armstead,
Bernard
Isaiah
Pierce.
Wright, Bernard Pierce. Yeah, Bernard Pierce, definitely. Jumping back over to women's hoops, former Pitt forward, and I hope I'm pronouncing her name right here, Rapaluche Ayadele, took a visit to Temple this past weekend. Kyle also broke that news.
Oh,
Only
but the
played-
allscoop.com Twitter broke that news.
Yes, but you were behind.
File projectile.
It could have been
Yeah,
anybody.
Could have been anybody.
Could have been Graham still having access to the account. Like,
And no, it was not. It was not Graham Foley. Averaged a little less than 5 points per game, 6.2 rebounds per game, but she finished 8th in the ACC in offensive rebounds, despite playing just a little more than 17 minutes per game. So took an official visit, but again, they lose. They were good. Where did they finish in offensive rebounds this year?
I believe 6th
Nationally, correct?
nationally.
Yeah. So obviously they're addressing, they want to, I mean, again, what team doesn't want to be a great offensive rebounding team, but that stat kind of jumps out at you there. So there's another name to keep an eye on. Another piece of recruiting news that we broke over the weekend, former USC and Loyola Marymount forward Amaya Oliver took an official visit to Temple. She averaged about 9.4 points, 5.9 rebounds per game for Loyola Marymount this season. Would be another established front court addition for Diane Richardson's team. So again, those are, well, you have a commitment and a few official visitors there, all forwards, all bigs. Not to say that we couldn't see a guard enter into the mix here. Do you feel, again, we don't have Diane Richardson sitting here with us, but if you were going to put yourself in her shoes, do you feel like even if they don't get another guard out of the portal, you think she's happy enough with what she has, with Tristan Taylor being another year older and wiser? Like if they didn't bring in another guard or another wing, you think she's good and is just saying like, we need size?
I think they need size more than they need somebody in the backcourt, but I don't think it would hurt to get another shooter. I mean, maybe they're going for more of a stretch 4 type, but right now you've got Tariana Gary as your prime 3-point shooter.
Mm-hmm.
And that can be good, but it also can be bad. Like she's very streaky. So I think it wouldn't hurt to bring in one more consistent, like at the college level player. Cause you got to think, they're bringing in Savannah Curry, who was a good 3-point shooter in high school. You're bringing in Adina Webster, who can score at all levels in high school. Kellyanne Sedano, who could get shots as well at the forward position, but I think it wouldn't hurt to have somebody with experience as well on the wing. But I think it is good that they're focusing on the front court because that is what needs to change. Like that was what hurt them toward the end of the year.
Yeah, 100%. Let's jump into the mailbag, and that's where we will talk a little bit of men's basketball. We did not forget about Adam Fisher's team. Nothing new necessarily in the portal, so to speak. I know fans are anxious about who's coming, who's going. We'll talk about that. A few questions into the list here. First one comes from one of our subscribers from the message board. That's Green Street Al. What are the chances, and do you think the staff is keeping a close eye out on adding a quarterback to the roster at this point, who will be an upgrade to the room and legitimately compete for the 2024 starting job? Yeah, I mean, when Clifton McDowell left, I asked Stan Drayton, were you surprised with him gone? Is that an area, a position where you would look to add another player? And he said, yes. So it doesn't mean that they definitely will, but we'd be surprised if they don't. If you're looking at his profile, if you're looking at somebody who eventually commits out of the portal, Is that going to be somebody who can legitimately come in and compete for the starting job? Or is it more of a guy that would look like a depth piece? Yeah, I think they'll add another quarterback. How good he is, how experienced he is, we'll see. Anybody who is leaving at this point, I don't know. You never know. There could be some intriguing options. There are quarterbacks in the portal. Now, we've said that Forrest Brock, we just talked about nobody has really stood out. Like Ramir said, nobody has looked like that guy just yet. Part of me would be hard pressed to say, yeah, they're going to, when the portal opens again, that they're going to find that next quarterback. Even if it's someone really good, they have to come in late July, early August, learn the playbook and win the job. It can be done, but yeah, I think we would all be sitting here saying that, yeah, they would probably want to add another quarterback. Again, just the question is, how good are they going to be and how much can we reasonably expect that they're going to earn their starting job? But I think another thing, and I'll flip this over to you guys after this. I know that fans don't want to think of it this way, but they want the starter to be the starter in week 1, in week 1, and week 5, and week 10, and week 12 throughout. But I think this could be a year where maybe you have a starter who's the starter in week 1 or week 2, and then somebody pops loose in week 3, kind of like EJ Warner did a couple years ago. I mean, I'll flip this over to you guys. Any thoughts on this question?
They have to add somebody, don't they?
Yeah.
Like, just to try to increase the competition within the room. I know if we sit here, Stan obviously like said like no one's ready. So I don't want to say he's disappointed in the room or like, but they obviously haven't met like some sort of expectation.
Mm-hmm.
So I wouldn't be surprised. And to your point of them, this might be a season to where they have to play like several guys. We were on the radio not too long ago, main event Tuesday, 3 p.m. Tune
WHIP.
WHIP, tune in.
Temple's student-run radio station. I've heard good things
no
about
free
this.
ads.
Now hiring general manager.
Yeah, outgoing general manager Declan Landis.
If you're interested.
Yes.
I said there, like, this might be a year where they play 3 guys. This could definitely be a year where there's a lot of quarterbacks being played or a lot of different quarterbacks playing.
To be fair, that's every year lately.
Yeah.
True.
Last year, they played 3 guys. Year before that, they
Yeah.
played 3 guys.
Mm-hmm.
Year before that, they played 2, 3. Yeah, they've always played like a lot of guys. There's a very few years you can look at where you're like Temple played 1 quarterback. Like some of the PJ years, yes. Maybe that one Anthony Russo year. Not even that, he missed games towards the end, and Frank Nutella had to play again. This was kind of going to be my answer to the which position group can improve the most, though, because of this.
Yeah.
I think there's 2 sides of this. One, I think they're going to bring somebody in. I don't think you're going to see proven, whatever, Coastal Carolina quarterback comes up to Temple for 1 year, because I don't think they can really like look a guy in the eye and say, for sure, you'll be our starting quarterback. And older quarterbacks are going to want to guarantee that they're starting. But even if they bring in maybe a guy that's like a fallback from a Power 5 school or a JUCO guy they really like or whatever it might be, I think that's going to rising waters lift all ships. But I think the other side to that is nobody's taken such a big stranglehold of that position that I don't think any of the current quarterbacks think that they're so far behind that they're going to leave.
Yeah.
I think like you would have seen like, okay, let's say Forrest Brock really was like pacing it and like Stan Drayton didn't name him the starter, but like it was pretty clear like he was doing it. Then you might see some of those younger guys or even an older guy be like, screw it, I got to get out of here and find somewhere to play. Because that hasn't happened, I think they're all going to stay. I think they all got to keep pushing each other and hopefully get better. Also, real quick, keep in mind, they're bringing in true freshman Chris Dietrich will be here in the summer. So they do get another guy in that room.
Yeah, they do. And again, I think we'd be mildly surprised if Chris Dietrich comes in and just lights it up in 4 weeks this summer and becomes the starter. It's no knock on him. That's just
the reality of college
the reality
football.
of,
I mean, but Temple's done it twice in the last decade.
They have. Yep. Yeah. So if I know this is I feel like a talk radio host saying this, but if the season were to start tomorrow, which it obviously is not, we're thinking probably Forrest Brock starts, right?
It's Forrest Brock.
No doubt.
100% is. He took the
just
bulk
looks
of the
better
snaps.
throwing the ball than anybody else.
Better. He looks confident as well. He can move a little bit. Like he is their best option right now. But the only issue is his accuracy didn't look great.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, it's spring practice. Like you don't know what you're going to look like against other competition. I don't know. I think what Stan said speaks volumes in the fact that they don't know either. And he was the one getting the bulk of the snaps. So it's like, yes, he is their starter right now, but that's all the more reason for them to see what options are available.
Now, what did you guys see when you looked as closely as you could at Evan Simon?
Was it it felt like a confidence thing. Like it didn't feel like he was stepping into throws like we saw on film, especially that Ohio State game where he looked decent.
Yeah.
Again, when he was playing at Rutgers against Ohio State. It was just he was throwing behind guys, he was throwing low. It just wasn't great reads either. Like and granted that could be some of that could be the play calling. Maybe he just didn't see the option that he wanted, but I think it was a confidence thing more than anything else. And that was almost the difference between him and Forrest Brock was the level of confidence. Like Forrest was stepping into throws. He was finding guys. He was making good reads. Was it the most accurate? Maybe not all the time, but he was more accurate. So I think that's the biggest issue is can he get his confidence up? And maybe he needs to learn the playbook a little more or something. I don't know. But yeah, I think confidence is the biggest thing between the two right now.
Is there anything now, given everything we've talked about, is there anything along those lines that says to you, okay, maybe there's a chance for Tyler Douglas to be in the mix here now? Do you live with just getting him reps and saying he is far from a finished product as a passer, as a processor? Does the kind of half in, half out on Forrest Brock, half in, half out on Evan Simon, Chris Diedrich being a true freshman coming in. We don't know who else they'll bring in. Does any of that open the window a little bit more? I'm not saying that Tyler Douglas is ready, but is there any scenario in which rest of April, all of May, all of June, he goes back home to Ocean Township, works out, continues to work out, comes in, makes enough of an improvement where they say, you know what? Even if this kid's a 52, 53% passer, we like what he can give us in terms of his mobility. Is there a little bit more of a window that's open for Tyler Douglas or no?
Possible, yes. Probable, no. He's just so far behind as a passer right now. Like he does give you that run, element and aspect of his game, but you kind of limit yourself in what you can do offensively if you want to give Tyler Douglas that push, which is why I'll say there is a possibility. There's for sure a possibility that it could happen. But for me right now, I'm gonna say no.
I mean, honestly, you tell me if you feel differently. I'd give it to Patrick Keller before I gave it to Tyler Douglas.
One guy
I
we
agree.
haven't talked about yet who had a really nice throw that was dropped
solid
by Corey Quascott Palmer.
Yeah,
on Saturday,
he
correct?
looked like we talk about confidence with Forrest Brock. He looked confident, which is crazy. They only gave him 6 throws, and they only gave Tyler Douglas 6 throws. But in those 6 throws, he looked. I mean, he's not going to be QB1. Don't get me wrong, but he looked better than Tyler Douglas did.
He was a very good high school quarterback at CB East, correct? Right? Like just one of those guys where I think the knock on him was very good high school quarterback, maybe more of like a FCS level guy in terms of like he's not very mobile, but
he could throw it.
I think they were very happy to be able to bring him in as a preferred walk-on. And
Yeah.
again, I'm glad you brought him up because we hadn't brought him up yet, but like his name does keep coming up.
Yeah, and for good reason. I mean, he looked solid, and like I said, he's not QB1, but he looked good.
Who has the strongest arm out of this group? Again, we've
Probably
seen
Declan.
I appreciate that.
out of the
8th grade recess varsity quarterback, starting quarterback.
of the Temple. We'll flesh that out a little bit later. Of the quarterbacks currently on Temple's roster, we're basing this upon, again, and I think Forrest Brock was put in. Anybody who looks at what he did in the second half against SMU last year when they were getting their asses kicked, nothing was going well around him. If you're judging him off of that half of football, I get it. It was a miserable night, barely a crowd there, not a good loss. They got blown out, but you can't judge him based off of that. But looking at what we've been able to see, 2 open practices and Saturday spring game, who looks to have the strongest arm? I'm not saying that this is the sole deciding factor. I'm just trying to, again, flesh this out a little bit more. Who do you think has the strongest arm in this group?
It's probably Forrest.
Forrest or PK maybe.
Yeah. He's
I
got a
think
nickname
Forrest.
already, PK.
Yeah,
So we were bringing it to PK already.
Yeah, we are. We just did. Ramir just did.
That's
PK.
You're welcome, Pat. P money.
We're catering to our Bucks County listeners right now.
P Kelly.
I
What
will
were you gonna
say, and not I'm carrying his flag or anything, but a quarterback like Tyler Douglas is not going to look good in practice.
Yep.
Period.
No.
Like that. Like you're
Especially
taking
when
away.
you can't run really.
Like Chris
Right,
Hoyer
you're-
never looked good in practice, and from what I would hear, but like he would again, like say what you want, he eventually flipped to tight end, but he won a bowl game and he was able to make some
Right.
plays. There are some guys. Kyle makes a great point here. Some guys just don't practice well. I think even Adam DeMichael, we've talked about this. He didn't always look great, but he was. I know it sounds so cliche, but he was a gamer when he got on the field and he
Right.
helped Temple win some games. So I think that's a good point to consider as well.
There's two things. There's one's the common like, look, if Tyler Douglas is buying time with his legs and has the ability to escape with his legs, like that's not going to translate into practice. That's better in game. But then there's guys that weren't good legs guys that also didn't practice well. Like Frank Newtile would be the first to tell you he didn't practice well, and then the lights would turn on in that first year where he played really well. Like he was just better in game. So I try not to put too much value in spring practices and stuff like that. Also keeping in mind that there's 4 or 5 months for them to get more comfortable and more familiar. But a guy like Tyler Douglas might be a guy that's like not playing, and then they finally say, you know what, let's just see what he does when there's live stuff out there, and all of a sudden you might have found something.
I mean, that's valid, but in fairness, like we haven't seen that. You know,
Right.
we saw it in Ocean Township, but
Sure, but I guess what I'm saying is you wouldn't see it. Like even when
That's
they're
true.
live in practice, like they're not really live in practice, right? Like
Sure.
when it's real game time and they're getting smacked around, all of a sudden he has the ability to make somebody miss and then throw downfield. Like that's going to be a different situation then.
my point was more like they didn't give him the opportunity to
Sure.
throw, and that's what kind of concerned me. But it could
Fair
be the plays
point,
being
but
run.
again, this is where I kind of lean back on. And again, I really don't have a good read. And again, I think the coaches are probably being transparent and honest when saying they don't even have the best read. They have a better read than we do, but I don't know if concerned, I hate to nitpick is like the right word to use, because they might have just, I think they'll evaluate everything from the spring. It's a different position we're talking about. Like Tyrone Carrier said at Bass last week, he's like, everything that needed to be learned was learned prior to the cherry and white game. We send them out there on Saturday to have a good time, execute,
They
cut
said
loose.
Thursday was the hardest practice.
Yeah, hope they have a good time. And then they'll look at it and say, okay, with that quarterback position, can we discernibly get anybody in the portal who could come in and give these guys a run for their money, or is it a depth guy? Well, we'll see. Then from there, you get into like those first couple weeks of August, and then it's like, okay, now who's repping with the ones and the twos? Because you can't obviously go into Oklahoma week and like, hey, all 4 guys are getting reps. We'll just know more.
You
In
totally
August-
couldn't do that going into Notre Dame and saying that you were going to play 4 quarterbacks.
God,
you totally couldn't do that.
What a moment for Jeff Collins. He was like, we could play all 3 guys, and then they get their asses kicked.
Declan,
afterwards.
do you know what he did?
I don't remember.
The first play of the game, he played 3 quarterbacks. He had 2 quarterbacks in the
I do
backfield.
remember that.
So stupid.
So I remember thinking, what?
Yeah,
what is going
I
on?
like Jeff and I wish him well, but that was like the height of his gimmickiness.
Yeah.
He's like, yeah, and I forget exactly what he says. Like, we did promised I'd play 3 quarterbacks, and they were all out there in the
I
first
think even
play.
he's like, maybe I was being a little facetious with you guys. Like, yeah.
Yeah, it's like an
What the-
established football program. And Declan, we can have fun with this. I think everyone at Notre Dame was like, yeah, LOL, really funny. We're gonna kick your butts now. Like
Yeah.
it was.
a fun game.
But that, I mean, not to go back,
work.
not to go back and forth on this, but that was like Logan Marchie,
Frankie
was it
Juice.
Russo and Anthony
Newtile.
Russo and Newtile. And again, going back to what Kyle said, I mean, there was a point where you looked at Frank Newtile coming out of, was he Don Bosco prep?
Yes.
More of a definite, like, taller guy, decent arm strength, pocket passer. The knock on him was that he couldn't run. He came in and people are like, he doesn't look all that good. And then he actually won some games for him. But yes, what Kyle's referring to is like just where they, and I can't even remember who he repped the majority of the time. I think Logan Marchie.
Logan had the job for the first like 4 or 5 games. Then
Yeah.
Newtile took over. Russo didn't get the job until the next year.
Yeah. And I mean, just looking at all those guys, I mean, Russo looked like a bust, and then he put up some big numbers and then hit the portal. And it kind of feels, again, different cast of characters. It's hard to get a handle on it right now, but yeah, I don't know. We'll obviously know more in August. And again, we will see if they make a preseason practice available to us in August. That's where you can really start to glean some things. I doubt they will, but
No,
we'll see.
there's no way.
So
I
I'm
hope.
just going back to what you were saying. And again, I am not in the Tyler Douglas camp where I'm saying he's definitely going to be the starter. He looks great. I don't know that you can be overly concerned about what they gave each quarterback to rep during the spring game. But yeah, I mean, I think Stan's being pretty honest. He's like, I don't know if any of them are ready
Yeah.
right now.
Yeah.
But obviously, a lot to digest. We're going to keep talking about that until weeks on end, well into the summer. The quarterback position. Stapler01, another screen name here from our subscribers. Which player stood out the most during the Cherry and White game? Also, I know there's no official depth chart yet, but were there any surprises about who was taking the field with the ones or the twos? And again, we'll use that term loosely. I'm amending his question here. So who stood out the most during the Cherry and White game? Pure eye test. Who stood out to you guys? Anybody where you're like, that guy just made a play, a sheer act of athleticism, a catch, a run, a throw, anything where you're just like, that guy looks like he belongs?
There's one answer, and it's Diwun Black.
Yeah.
He credited with 6 sacks. He looked dominant. No one could block him. It's a good time to be on the Diwun Black train.
It's a good time to be Diwun
All
Black.
aboard. All aboard. Well, then there are 2 answers, and it's Diwun Black and Reese Clark, because Reese Clark looked sharp and explosive in ways that he hadn't looked last year. So that could be somebody to look out for, especially when he's paired with Landon Morris. When Landon Morris was on the field, Reese Clark looked even better. So
also, with no official depth chart, were there any surprises about who was getting reps with ones or the twos, or who looked to be the ones and the twos? Any surprises where you thought, oh, this guy's in the mix more than I thought he would be?
I don't think so.
Nah.
Because a lot of the guys, I mean, you got to think now we're already here. I feel like if in the summer we saw somebody like a freshman or one of those, I can't think of what they're called.
Redshirt freshman?
No, summer arrivals.
Early
whatever you call
enrollees.
them. No, because it's not early. 'Cause
Not
it's in
early
the
anymore,
summer.
yeah.
Summer arrivals.
But you get what I'm saying. Summer arrivals.
Walk-ons?
If they, what's that?
Yeah. So Declan's just talking about the scholarship guys who they signed who aren't here yet.
Correct. Yeah. If
Freshmen.
they like were in,
Summer arrivals sounds good.
sure.
Elijah Darraville, I would say, because he was out there. He was one of the first corners out there. And I was like, oh, with all the guys that they brought in, looked like they were like recruiting, I guess, over him, and he was still out there. So
Well, he
Yeah.
switched positions.
Switched
too,
from
right?
safety to corner, so that's
It looks
working out
solid
too.
though too.
I wasn't there, but just from hearing things and seeing things, I was a little surprised. Actually, I don't know if I'm going to say surprised, but we haven't talked about it. I'm going to bring him up. Eric Stewart, the JUCO linebacker, I think is going to get a fair amount of burn with the ones or twos.
played a lot.
That like maybe considering if you're a casual fan, you go, oh, you hear Tyquan King's name, and TK Wright was a big recruit at NC State. Like maybe see things like that. It seems like him and Antoine Santiago might have the inside edge to kind of be in those starting interior linebackers. Which is
Santiago especially. Santiago looked really, really good.
And the previous staff liked him.
they hit him.
When they recruited him, they were like kind of hoping that nobody came in and poached him last minute, and they thought he looked the part, acted the part, like just an under recruited kid from Connecticut. And so the previous staff saw something in him. Newer staff comes in, and they're like, hey, we like this kid enough to not run him off and tell him like, yeah, if you want to play significant snaps, it's not going to be here. So he's still hanging around.
And
So
2 years later, then you have the head coach saying he's going to be special. Like
Yeah.
Stan Drayton said, like I think he's going to be a special player here at Temple.
yeah,
So
yeah, absolutely. D Thomas 96, another owlscoop.com subscriber. Will we scoop when I started reading this question, I thought he was going to say, will we scoop a few more times before the portal? I was like, yeah, we're going to be podcasting
Every week,
maybe.
Yeah.
baby.
Maybe.
But-
Somebody didn't hear our infamous discussions in the summer last year.
when are we
No.
going on summer break? I've had this debate for
Kyle
10
always
years now.
knows.
I want to
Do
go
we
on
get
summer break.
Do we get summer break?
Kyle wants to go to a summer camp with bagged lunches and soccer and
We should just do it at the office. We should camp out in the backyard behind the Owl Scoop offices, and we'll hold the barbecue every day.
I was never a summer camp guy, but I always liked the idea of a summer camp with it's just like a lake. There's the big blob thing in there. I'm just sitting on the blob. Maybe Declan or John jumps on it, shoots me into the air, and I land on the lake. Like
It won't be me. I'll tell you what, I can't swim. If I jump on that thing, call somebody.
I'll save you. I can barely swim myself, but I'll be out there.
Perfect,
Doggy
perfect.
paddling on over.
I've never been to a summer camp either. I think an Owl Scoop summer camp would be awesome.
Ramir wins the talent show.
I've
Not
never,
as
I've never
good.
been, I
Singing
only thing
would.
I ever did was middle school when they made us do the bonding camps was the most I ever did. But then I never went to
Yeah.
like a sleepover study camp. Or
Yeah.
something.
Like a day camp too. Like I would like a volleyball camp.
I had a bunch of friends that would work every summer at summer camps though. And the weirdest part to me of that, they were like 16, 17 years old as counselors. They wouldn't get paid till the end of the year.
Isn't that crazy?
That's
They worked the
insane.
entire summer.
Yeah.
No money. And then they're like, here's $1,800. Like,
Mm.
bye.
Yeah.
That's a leap of faith.
I remember we
it
did
is.
the math one year for my friend who worked at a Boy Scout camp, and he made 9 cents an hour.
Oh,
And like
that
these
is
aren't
below-
like
that is below
these aren't
minimum
like
wage.
FDIC.
You don't say.
These
You
aren't like
don't say.
FDIC insured companies. If that company just doesn't have money to give you at the end of the year, SOL.
Good luck. Yeah,
Like
should have signed something.
We're time stamping this segment. Summer camps. D Thomas 96. Will we scoop a few more starter level offensive linemen from the portal? I've seen more and more P5 level added in the portal over the past few days.
I mean, that don't mean they're coming here.
Fair
point. You keep an eye on every position over the next week or so, guys that could be leaving. I don't get the sense that that Chris Wiesahan is looking at Saturday and going, "Oh shit," because it really is. It's a. I mean, what position on the field isn't a developmental position? But I still feel like he likes his room enough to where he is not coming out of the spring game and saying, "I need a center, I need a left tackle, I need a right tackle. Hell, I need a brand new starting five." I don't. That's not the sense I get from him. I'm not saying that they couldn't add an offensive lineman.
Yeah.
But I am really just cautioning this with, like, again, I'm not, the offensive line looked better last year than the year before, but then they weren't healthy and they were not good. Chris Wiesahan looks lighter and happier than he has since he's gotten here. Again, that does not mean that they're going to be the best offensive line in the American. I just don't know that he comes out of Saturday saying this is a sinking ship and I need 5 new guys.
And he shouldn't. Like, it's all non-talent related issues. Yeah. Like, it's communication, it's knowing your role, it's things like that. So he shouldn't. Like, he should be fine.
I'll also say I don't see anybody. I mean, I'm looking at like the thing. There's 16 scholarship offensive linemen on this team. There's like one name that I'm like, okay, that guy might leave, but there's not like a lot of times you look at these position groups and you're like, that dude's gone, so that'll free up a spot. Mm-hmm. There's no definitive like that guy's definitely going. So are you willing to commit 18 scholarships to offensive line? Like, I don't know. It seems like a lot. So it could just be that this is what you got.
Mm-hmm. Off the Hook 3 on Twitter. The offense will live and die from the quarterback and offensive line play, judging by the spring game. Neither are looking any good. Of course, this ties right into what we're talking about. Without E.J. Warner, many are concerned this could be one of the worst offenses in the FBS. Can you talk Temple fans off the ledge? I mean,
it was one of the worst offenses in the FBS with E.J. Warner.
Yes,
true.
It was. No, it really was, because he was I'm going to sound like I'm being nitpicky here of E.J. Warner. I mean, he clearly has talent. You'd clearly feel a lot better with E.J. Warner here at quarterback than gone. He was a volume thrower, threw the ball a lot, but not much else was going on right around him. And Kyle makes a really, really good point. You know, I think that the storyline would be he was still here. Great, you have E.J. Warner, but are the receivers good enough? Is the offensive line good enough?
Are you going to have any balance with a running game?
Yeah, exactly. And like, 3 years in now, defensive coordinators are really going to be able to out scheme him. I can't talk fans off the ledge and saying, I mean, we just had this like 20-minute long conversation about all the parity at the quarterback position. So we can't, pivot and do a 180 and be like, oh no, we're going to talk you off the ledge because Forrest Brock is going to look like, or it's going to look like, it's going to look like the next great Temple quarterback. But we just addressed the offensive line, and that, like, I think there's more young talent and depth that Chris has had since he's gotten the Temple. I don't know if talking fans off the ledge is the right way, but again, I guess what I would zero in on more on this question is judging by the spring game. And I think that's what we've been talking about. You can't judge everything off the spring game.
Yeah.
Probably not the answer you're looking for off the Hook 3, but
if you want to be talked off the ledge, the closest you have to being talked off the ledge is you really hope this offense is a more balanced offense this year. Yeah. They need to run the ball regardless of who the quarterback is. Even if E.J. Warner had come back, it cannot be throwing the ball 60 times a game.
Mm-hmm. And I will say they are as well equipped to be that team than they have been in years.
Mm-hmm.
So take some solace in that.
And there's guys we haven't seen yet either. Like Terez Worthy, All-American running back, isn't on campus yet. You got 3 offensive linemen that aren't on campus yet. Like,
do you also, I mean, one last point before we go on and finish off with these last 2 questions. Even on short and intermediate throws, you still need a talented guy. The guy that needs to be able to process, learn the offense. With some of these guys, whether it's a Dante Wright, whether it's an Antonio Jones, whether it's getting the ball to a Reese Clark, a Landon Morris, do you need a guy with a CJ Stroud arm, or do you need a guy that can just get the ball to people in space and let them do the work?
I think arm strength is overrated in terms of quarterback evaluation anyway is more about anticipation and timing and accuracy and timing and things like that.
Yeah.
So they just need a guy who can be accurate and who is on time.
Yeah. That's the biggest thing. And make the right reads.
Yes.
Temple 22, another OutScoop subscriber, a basketball question. We have about 2 weeks until the portal closes. Do you think we can hang on to the players yet to enter? I'll go down the list here. I don't think, again, who knows, but I would be shocked if Matteo Piccarelli and Steve Settle aren't here. I don't think they have any intentions of leaving. Let's look at Jordan Riley. I think Jordan Riley is smart to get an NBA evaluation. This is going to sound harsh, but I'm just going to say it. I think that NBA evaluation is going to tell him, I think you're athletic enough to play in the NBA. You can't really shoot all that well, and you can't dribble. You're a turnover machine. That you're not going to the NBA without those tools, those basic tools in your tool bag. But again, he's smart to declare and get the feedback.
Absolutely.
Whether or not he hits the portal, I don't get the sense that he will. I think he's probably going to return to Temple, getting the evaluation. Shane Dezzoni, we'll see. I think we'll know in a couple of weeks based on who comes in, and we'll talk about this. We'll have a little bit of an update on the message board for our OutScoop subscribers. I think Shane Dezzoni, whether Shane stays or leaves, will depend upon who comes in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah.
You guys have anything else you want to add here?
I get why you're asking it. I mean, you're still seeing it. Like TJ Bamba just entered for Nova. Like you're still seeing later on in the process guys enter that. Honestly, I get why people are focused on May 1 because that's when the portal closes. It doesn't close for grad students. So you'll still see guys that you thought, oh, the roster was set. And then in July, so-and-so got his summer credits and is now graduating and might leave. But I think Shane is the biggest question mark right now.
Ryan Mack from our OutScoop staff. We love Ryan. We adore him. His question: who on the OutScoop staff could be a UFC fighter?
Oh, dang. I'm gonna think all of us are big softies.
I see you coming up with a character.
Yeah, you're more.
WWE.
If the question was WWE, then Declan. But actual,
UFC.
I could talk the
combat.
talk. I can't.
Yeah.
Kyle, you hit the Peloton every day. Does that help you in the octagon?
Good
If
for
it's
endurance.
cardio, if it's all cardio, if we're just going to run around the circle for an hour and a half, then sure.
Get away from me.
Bring the buzzer. There is no buzzer. Did you not read the contract? Oh,
There's
God.
no buzzer.
You could just do.
Saying Spumoni does not get you out of
It'll be
this.
like the opening scene of the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man when he's in the steel cage and the guy's like, I got you for 5 minutes.
you for 3 minutes.
I'm just like, oh crap.
Macho.
But
Man.
now-
So the answer is no one on the OutScoop staff could be a UFC fighter.
I don't think so.
I don't even know why Ryan would ask that question.
It's a good question. It's a good conversation. I just don't think any of us could do it.
Yeah.
But Kyle, you could be like one of the jujitsu guys that just lay on your back and then do the bike motion. So that they can't
Jiu-jitsu is
get
not
near you.
real. I'll just stand up.
Mhm.
If someone tries to do
point.
jiu-jitsu, I'm just gonna stand up.
Good point.
We're breaking Tyler into the mix. Does Tyler have a mean side that we don't know about?
Tyler was ex-military.
Yeah, so maybe it's
He might.
Tyler.
Of all of us, yeah, it would be Tyler for
Zach's too nice. Zach's way too nice.
Yeah.
All right, last question. Oh wow, Pat just sent us a lot of stuff here. Okay, first off, again, I'm reading this text from Pat. Kyle is right. I did host Quizzo, but I'm not full of useless knowledge and will dominate at a random Quizzo. In fact, your today in history is offensively easy. Offensively easy. I don't know if he's he's put one in all caps and he's trying to be
Whoa.
funny here.
Pat. Whoa.
We'll sort that out later.
Let's bump it up.
We'll
I'm
sort
not
this-
gonna say it. I mean, I like it because it makes me feel smarter. So by all means, keep it at the level it is. It's like when you see College Jeopardy and you're like, I would dominate these kids. I only want you to go up to Tournament of Champions Jeopardy out here with on the day of.
But that's what I'm saying. If I went any harder, nobody would guess it. That's my issue.
I think I've missed one so far.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
just
All
throw
right.
that out there.
Number one, again, following the format that Pat usually uses, which is a serious one and a funny one. Number one, what is your best case solution to fix the NIL problem in men's basketball? You can make the case that the women's game has surpassed the men's in popularity because you know the women's stars, but thanks to NIL, you don't really get attached, good or bad, to the men's side. It seems like gone are the days of a JJ Redick staying 3 to 4 years and you either love or hate him. Players just leave for the money, and it's ruining interest in men's college basketball. Is there a way to fix it so you don't have guys looking for their fourth program in under 40 years, not naming any names, Tosh tweet.
That's crazy.
Or Tosh catching a stray.
But I mean, the same thing. It was the same thing with the one and done. Everybody said
Well,
the same thing about the one. And done.
But then LeBron would say that's why people cared about women's basketball this year, is because they can't do the one and done.
Pat, I'll say a couple things. I'll flip it over to these guys really quickly. I think that Kyle kind of made a point where, like, maybe in a few years from now, maybe we're speaking a little bit of a different conversation, or having a different conversation where maybe NIL is a little bit more regulated than it is now. I'll go back to, and I'm not saying it's just a one size fits all thing, but I think we've said a bunch of times on this podcast, I think the solution is something that could have been but wasn't, and I go back to the NCAA trying to litigate everything through the courts. Andrew Hope, Philadelphia area lawyer, talked about it. They could have and should have come up with some sort of revenue sharing model that put money back into the pockets of players. They didn't do that. They kicked the can down the road, and now you have what you have. I think all of us are in agreement that players should be able to monetize their name, image, and likeness, and they should get a cut of a lot of money that's coming in. But yeah, there's the other side of it. And I think Pat's thoughts here are the thoughts shared by a lot of people. It's hard to follow teams. It does make it a little deflating. It's not just middle of the road or bad teams that are losing players. It's really good teams. I mean, even on the women's side, Villanova lost their best player, and they had a really good season, and she's in the portal. So I don't know how you fix it now. I don't know what's ahead on the legal landscape, what becomes of the NCAA. I feel you on this one, Pat. I just don't honestly know. I know what could have been done in the past and wasn't, and I know that's not really answering your question. Kyle, Declan, Ramir, anything you guys want to chime in on here?
Nah.
Revenue sharing. Like, I think it needs to go in-house. I think they essentially need to become employees, would be the only way that kind of calms down.
Yeah.
But something has to change. Like, this is not tenable. It's not sustainable.
Yeah.
I think Temple, if you really want to be an optimist, Temple might be fortunate in the sense, I feel like a lot of collectives and organizations are dealing with donor fatigue, where people are like, I already gave 75 grand and we went 16-16. Why do you want more money from me? Temple's just now starting to get money from a lot of its donors. So maybe it hasn't had donor fatigue yet.
The last thing I'll say here too is look at how many guys still haven't committed yet. And I think
there's gonna be 2,000 people in the portal.
Yeah. And all of them, God bless them, I think I said this last week, all of them think that they're six-figure players on the open market. Yeah. And I don't know where you draw the line on that, but a lot of them go out there and, hey, they have a chance to earn life-changing money. And for a lot of them, they're probably taking a harsh look at themselves and saying, I'm not an NBA player, but man, if I can gross six figures this year as a college athlete while not paying tuition, room and board, why wouldn't I do that? Hear you on that. But so many players are entering the portal, and it's like the people who are getting to the party where everyone else is left, and they're like, hey, where's all the interest? And it's not there, or they're not getting the interest that they think they're getting. And that has a detrimental effect. I think people have called it like the musical chairs thing. Like, there are going to be people, and it's happened in the past, it's going to happen even more this year, where guys are thinking they're going to transfer up a level and they might end up down a level. If Hyseer Miller doesn't end up at Virginia Tech, he might end up at like a place like Fordham. Is he better or worse off? And again, I love Hyseer. Don't knock him for, putting his name out there and entering the portal. But yeah, I agree with Kyle. It's not sustainable. And I don't think any of us are saying it from a point of view where, like, we don't think that these guys deserve money, but the NCAA should have been sharing revenue. And I think a lot of this would have been cleaner and better for the game.
Yeah. When everybody says the Wild West, it just means that they weren't prepared for what it actually meant. That's how I always take it. So yeah, it's got to be regulated.
They weren't prepared for Will Smith and mechanical spiders.
Well
said. Who was?
I started the it's gonna say Chris Rock.
Oh boy. The funny part, the and part of Pat's question. All right, you guys ready for the scenario? You got to put your thinking caps on here. You have 1 month to make $750,000. If you fail to make this much money, you will be forced to live in that small Indiana town that Kyle lived in for a few years, with the catch being that you have to get the Kyle Korver haircut that Kyle requested, and you can only get that haircut for the rest of your life. You also can only eat Quiznos or Arby's because that's all the town has. You desperately want to avoid this mid-America lifestyle. How do you do it?
First of all, we had 2 Taco Bells. Okay, 2 Taco Bells. So let's be clear.
Taco Bell, Long John Silver.
Kyle, before we get to this, and we'll go with you first. Are you at all offended by this question?
No. Why would I be
Okay.
offended by that? Second
Okay.
of all, I was in like the third largest town in Indiana. So like
Okay.
wasn't that small.
Nonetheless, the
No
question
flex.
stands. What
Big
do you
deal.
do, Kyle? What do you do to make $750,000 in 1 month? If not, you're forced to go back and live middle school Kyle life.
I think like if I was, I have a high morals
This
ethic.
is where
I'm,
you
I'm an
scrap.
ethical
You're
person.
gonna scrap.
I would think like, I gotta scrap, I gotta get out there. I think I'm taking advantage of old people on Facebook. I think I'm dedicating 16 to 22 hours a day just trying to scam like grandmas and granddads out of their pensions.
Old
Like
con man
that's
Kyle.
that guy worked 40 years building Fords in Detroit. Now he's gonna send it to me because I convinced him that like somehow his son's in danger. I think that is my most likely scenario to get $750,000 in 30 days.
Very innovative, morally questionable, but you said it was going to be morally
I
questionable.
prefaced it with that. You can't judge me because I'm already judging myself.
Right. My follow-up question is, you get that 750 grand.
I
how
immediately
much-
go for 1.5 in Atlantic City. Immediately. If I get 750,000, I'm immediately going to Atlantic City and just hitting roulette, see if we can get it to 1.5. Worst case scenario, I'm back where I was in 2004, baby. I've lived this life.
And you're bringing Johnny, and he's bringing all of Temple.
You dropped me back in Muncie, Indiana in 2024. I'm mayor by 2026. Like there's no scenario where I'll just thrive. I'll be the snake oil salesman coming in and just convincing these Garfield obsessed these Hoosiers that guess what? I was foreseen.
You guys hate Mondays? Guess what? You don't have to hate Mondays anymore.
The prophecy is correct. I'm here.
Banning Mondays in Muncie, Indiana.
I once wrote a fan letter to Jim Davis, the creator of Garfield, and got a letter back with an autograph. It was probably a form letter, but nonetheless, I was.
That's awesome.
So you sent a stamp to Muncie, Indiana.
Correct. Yeah.
I'm surprised that it's not hanging on the wall in here, to be quite honest.
Yeah, he was the
right
one
under
celebrity
Frank
that got
Sinatra.
back to me, unlike John Ferris of Access. Two questions, Kyle. Number one, how much do you have to pay for lawyers? Because eventually people are going to realize that you scammed them. Do you get good lawyers to just kind of fortify that?
I did all my scamming on a kayak 30 miles off the shore. Maritime law doesn't apply to me.
Good call. Good call. And now those high school classes are coming back, and they're meaning something, you know?
Second follow-up question. You go back and live that life. How cool is Meg with that?
Oh, in almost all of these scenarios, Meg has wised up and inevitably left me. So like at this time, I'm estranged. I'm dealing with trying to get like once a month custody of my kids in these scenarios. And I'm focusing all my energy on scamming elderly people because I don't want to deal with the problems in my own backyard.
Do Chelsea and I get Meg in the divorce because we love Meg? We don't. Not that we don't love you, but we love Meg.
I'm gonna be honest with you. In this scenario, you probably get neither. Like it's probably just like Meg cuts and runs. I'm incarcerated in a minimum security federal prison in Colorado. Like you're probably gonna get neither.
Fair enough.
Life is all about change, and
sometimes
change is
drastic
coming.
change.
Yeah.
Declan, I can't beat that answer. My immediate thought was I'm finding the next GameStop and we're shorting Wall Street.
The issue is once like people like you or me hear about GME and all these things and these like meme stocks, it's already done.
That's true.
Like you're gonna end up like somehow owing more money, and then guess what? You're right there next to me in Muncie, Indiana.
Perfect.
I need a lieutenant mayor, deputy mayor.
Look, I'd be happy to. To be quite honest, though, I mean, Muncie, Indiana doesn't sound too bad. You've got all my favorite things: chain restaurants, quiet, perfect, love that.
Cheap real estate.
I'm
Quiet.
broke. I'm broke.
Quiet. Number 2 on the list.
Number 2 on the list. They've got 2 Taco Bells, not 1, but 2. One of them may still be combination Long John Silvers. That's all your food groups. I mean, what
food groups?
What could you add?
Your food groups are Baja Blast and fried fish. Those are the 2 primary food groups of the pyramid.
Exactly. I don't know what you're questioning. Plus, they put lettuce and tomato on the tacos, so you're fine.
Yeah, about once every 3 years, an outbreak happens because of Taco Bell lettuce, but we're okay.
You just got to hope that
Wait,
you
you
didn't
said-
get the lucky one.
Kyle, did you say Baja Fresh?
Baja
It's a Baja
Blast.
Blast.
Oh, okay.
This guy.
Baja Fresh
Unreal.
was a good place.
Did you not know Baja Blast? They sell it now in cans.
Oh, Baja. I know that. I thought you said Baja Fresh, which was like a another like Mexican hybrid place. Rymir, 750 grand in a month. What are you doing?
I have one that I probably can't share.
Hey,
But
It's your future employment.
hey.
What about I see you running like a QB camp where you're like, I will turn you on to NFL quarterbacks.
But if you could do
overcharged.
that,
Overcharged.
if you could do that and make a $750,000 in a month, then why aren't we doing that?
Yeah.
Great point.
Yeah.
Yeah, just throw it harder.
It's your
He's
footwork.
like, actually, I mean,
You're tied up, everything.
arm strength's overvalued, guys. You gotta just stay on time.
How about next time complete the pass?
Everything's tied up on your footwork right now. Listen, I'm going on vacation for
All right,
3
45
weeks.
minutes for lunch. I'll see you guys tomorrow.
That's hilarious. I ain't think of that. Yeah, let's go with that.
All right.
Your mind immediately went to something that you'll end up maybe a little worse than minimum security in Colorado.
Oh, for sure. First thing that went to my mind was this has to be done illegally.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Because again, if you could do it legally, then why wouldn't you just commit
Yeah, why
yourself
would-
to a month?
Great
And
point.
you're like, guess what? Life-changing money. I made it in 30
It's
days.
like, why am I here? I'm going in the
thinking
opposite direction.
I'm thinking like an office space type of scheme where they are slowly but surely skimming like
But they did it. Well, I mean,
pennies
they
at a
didn't.
time.
It was supposed to happen over a couple of years, and it happened
Right,
over
that
a
was
This
what
is a
that's-
month.
and then they
so
ended
we
up
would
in
have to
jail.
accelerate
They were
this. So
going to.
maybe
Well, they did.
quarters at a time.
There you
Mm.
go.
And then you end up being Milton at the end.
Get to burn this place to the ground.
But he gets the money in the end. That's the
He
other
does
part.
get the
He
money.
does. He wins.
He
He wins.
gets money.
But he also committed arson. So, how willing are you to, do the deed?
I hate to sound poor. I can't think of anything better than what you
You're
guys
all
just did.
coming to Indiana with me.
Yep.
'Cause you're not
Oh, yeah,
ideas
baby.
guys.
Yep.
I think I'd look sick with the Kyle Korver haircut. I'm like almost there.
Sick, cool, or like sick, ill.
Well, depends on the day.
Fair enough.
I don't think my hair allowed me to do that. So
No, that would be kind of tough. We'd have to stop at a wig shop.
It's like, have you seen like when Jimmy Butler did like emo Jimmy
No.
Butler?
Yes. Yeah.
Stitches.
Oh,
My hair lady.
yeah.
Start going to My Chemical Romance concerts.
Yeah, the 2004 Kyle would have been listening to My Chemical Romance. So
Yes,
this all
yeah.
tracks.
Oh, I
Yeah.
bet.
Yeah. Yep.
When I was.
Oh God.
First of all, that's not My Chemical Romance, isn't it? That's
No, it is. Black Parade?
no.
I don't know.
It's,
Yeah, it is.
Is it?
I'm a little
Yes.
Sue John. It's okay.
When I was
Okay.
a young man. Where
Yeah, that's My Chemical Romance.
the hell is this? Anyway, so 2004. I actually haven't found it yet, but I'm going to take your word for it. We had in my typing class, we had to create a mixtape. We all did one CD, one song, and I did a My Chemical Romance song. And this dude Blair, after we listened to it one time, said, "Can we take that off? I can't type while that's playing." Like I disturbed his entire education by putting on like a 2004 My Chemical Romance song.
What a way to close out.
You are
this-
correct that is My Chemical Romance.
There we go. Pat, coming in hot again.
Thank
after
you,
a
Pat.
several week absence. Pat, thank you for sending in that gem of a question. Appreciate it. Well, thanks for sticking with us for another episode. We will have more for you guys next week, and who knows if we're going to be recording a month from now from Muncie, Indiana.
We could be.
Could be.
Hopefully.
The quality will be significantly lower. I'm not
See you there.
confident that they have high-speed internet there yet. So
Meet us at the Quiznos.
Yeah.
Same time, same place. Well, not same place, but
You want a good melted sandwich and some Temple sports talk?
oh yeah, baby.
That's the
I'm going
best
to
for
grab the Baja Blast across the street. Coming back.
you. Good stuff. Hi. All right, we'll talk to you guys next week.